Are boxes the bane of your life? Well, you're not on your own. Whether your boxes are empty or full, you're going to need a strategy to deal with them on your decluttering journey. So, in this podcast, we're delving into the cardboard.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you're new to the Declutter Hub podcast, you're so welcome. What you'll find is that we try and find a fun factor in the serious business of decluttering. And if you've been here for a while, you know exactly what we mean. So thank you so much for listening.
If you'd like to get involved in conversations relating to this podcast, it all takes place in our Facebook group. So come and join our lovely, warm, supportive community. To find the Facebook group, go to declutterhub.com/group to find out more, or you can search for the Declutter Hub community on Facebook.
Well, Leslie, here we are talking about boxes. Do you think this will be useful for people to talk about boxes? We think it is, but
I just feel like before we hit record, maybe we've kind of hit an all-time low that we're doing a whole podcast on a cardboard box. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it all sounds a bit crazy when you think, what did you do today at work? Yeah, we talked about cardboard boxes for half an hour. People will be like, what? But I think it's really important, and it's something that comes up quite a lot from people. And we want to delve into an empty box, so empty cardboard boxes, and then full cardboard boxes. Now, empty cardboard boxes are definitely easier to deal with than full cardboard boxes, but we're going to try and give strategies for both. But let's start with the easy stuff and let's talk empty boxes. I think it's really important for us to try and think about why do we keep so many boxes? What is it about an Amazon box or any kind of box that comes through the door that we think, do you know what, that's going to be super handy, that I'm going to keep it?
Yeah, because we see it all the time, don't we, Leslie? Every client we have ever worked with, we found cardboard boxes. Some of them scattered around the house, some of them in a room, like a little towering block of things that is just about to fall over, in garages, in utility rooms, sometimes in the loft, sometimes empty, sometimes full, but yes, all over the place. And that is why we're doing a podcast, because you're not on your own. If you're like, yeah, I've got a lot of empty boxes because they might come in handy one day, let's talk about it.
I think it comes from that place of, if we are somebody who holds on to things generally, which most people in our community are, or are certainly on a journey of to extract themselves out of that place, I think we try and see a purpose for everything that comes in. And that's where it stems from. We're like, that's a useful box. If I were to send a parcel, if I were to need to take something breakable to the charity shop, if I were to be moving house, that box would be super useful. But what we do is we put that kind of what if, just in case scenario in front of or ahead of our needs now, which is more space over the cardboard box, right? We need more space, we need less stress, we need more time, we need less stuff to manage. All of those things are more important than keeping a cardboard box for the unlikely event in most instances. And in most instances, it is unlikely, because they're still sitting there 10 years later in a lot of houses, that we're going to need it. So we need to really look at today. We need to evaluate what we're doing. Are we an eBayer that's sending things out all the time? Yeah, of course you're going to need cardboard boxes, and that's absolutely fine because that's realistic. But for most people, it's just, might be useful. So
Yeah, I've even heard, it's really handy to have some boxes when I'm going to move house. And then you're asking, oh, are you planning to move house? No, I've been living in this house for like 23 years. And you're like, in my head, this makes no sense whatsoever. But it's indeed that what if scenario, right? What if I suddenly move house? Well, that's normally not going to happen overnight either. You will have time to find some boxes, trust me. And If you're a bit like a person who likes to shop online all the time, boxes will be coming in all the time.
I know, I think that's it. I think it's more like that another box is going to land in your home before you're going to need a box. That's the thing. And
Yeah.
so we need to wean ourselves off from the boxes. And the ideal is that we wean ourselves from the boxes coming in at all. So the end goal and the reason why we're sort of talking about this in the podcast is we want to stop the boxes. Of course, there are things that we need and they will come in a box. I mean, it's a bit annoying, really, Amazon. I mean, they've got much better, haven't they? I mean, I know other retailers are available, but many of us are used to buying stuff on Amazon, right? And so, they have got better with the sizes of the boxes and things like that. But they used to send these like massive boxes, didn't they, for like tiny little things.
Yeah.
And all of that needs to be dealt with, I mean, we're not too bad, really. So because I'm a declutterer and sometimes I would take cardboard from people's houses, I've got two blue bins, which it is. And so in the UK, we have different color bins for different things. And so we have a paper bin, paper and cardboard. And so I had two bins. They allow you to have extra bins for recyclables, but not for general waste, because you're sort of restricted here as to how much you can put in general waste. So I've got two bins, and so I'm all good for the cardboard. All good for the
Yeah.
cardboard. I put
Yeah.
things away. But I think, yeah, we really need to sort of get to that stage where the boxes are not coming in the first place. But before that, let's tackle the boxes. What are we going to do, Ingrid?
Well, I think you have to be really looking at each box and go, okay, is this going to be sensible? Of course, having one or two boxes is not going to make or break your whole decluttering journey. But if you look around and go, yeah, that's me. I've got boxes here, there, and everywhere. Honestly, you need one or two. The rest need to be folded down and put into the recycling, because what are you going to do with it all? Or if maybe you happen to be lucky and talk to a friend that morning, or at work or in the shop or somewhere, and they go, oh, I'm actually going to move, or I need some boxes. You can go, I actually have some. I know one of our members actually put some of her boxes on a free giveaway site because they were really, really sturdy. They were not flimsy, and she thought they can have a second life. But let's be honest, most cardboard can just go straight into your recycling bin. It can all be kind of mulched down to pulp and be another recycling, another box in the future. So, but let's keep that supply going out instead of keeping it all in your house.
And there's one more thing that's really important to say as well that we need to get a handle on. Many of our members, of our listeners, of our clients have boxes turning up on a regular basis and they don't know what's in the boxes. So these are orders that have been placed online and you're not sure what they are, and people just leave them. So regularly, Ingrid and I go to homes and there are Amazon boxes that have not even been opened. And so that's a real sign and something you need to do with that. And depending on where you are on your decluttering journey, on your shopping journey, that's for you to work through. But that's a sign that you need to look at your intentional shopping.
Now, Leslie, I wanted to add one more thing to this, to the empty boxes as well. And that is that sometimes it can be handy to keep an empty box. Larger boxes, one or two. But if you've got some smaller boxes, a shoe box, for example, or a box from a mobile phone, or kind of smaller boxes that are quite sturdy, it can be really helpful to keep them because they can be really used for like dividers in drawers as a temporary solution. So don't go completely cold turkey. Keep some of the smaller boxes. But if you've got shoe boxes with a lid attached, in my opinion, they can go because, again, they are not very handy to use. But shoe boxes with a lid that is loose can be really helpful to use for dividing.
Absolutely. So, empty boxes, in a nutshell, pare them right down and recycle them. You will always be able to get another box. Imagine how many boxes are out there in the ether at the moment. They're getting delivered around left, right, and center. If you've not got a box for something, you can bet your bottom dollar that somebody else does, and it will not be difficult to get your hands on. So let the boxes go and create that space that you need in your house. Now, we are going to pop to a break, and then we are going to talk about the more difficult matter of dealing with full boxes.
Hi everyone, welcome back. We are now going to chat about what to do when you have full boxes, cardboard boxes that are full of stuff. They might be in your living room, they might be in your bedroom, in your basement, in your garage, in your room of doom, in your spare bedroom. They're lurking everywhere. How are you going to tackle full boxes? Because I know you're like, right, I hear you listening, Ingrid. I want to declutter the cardboard, but my boxes are full of stuff. And what do I do then?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it all starts with working out a bit of a plan. So, as we've said, they could be in all of those different rooms that Ingrid mentioned, and they could be in all of them, right? And that's the problem if we've got boxes everywhere. Because what people typically do who have clutter that are reluctant to let go of stuff, we become very good at organizing our clutter. And so quite often, sometimes the boxes are in an organized state. They might even be labeled. We know what's in the boxes potentially, but we've kind of organized them and put them all together. We still ultimately need to let a lot of that stuff go because we want to pare down and we want to get ourselves to a stage where our stuff that we have that we choose to keep in our home is in appropriate storage. And cardboard boxes, for the most part, are, are not suitable storage. We need to put things in cupboards, in drawers, and all that kind of stuff. We need to create a home that looks more like a home rather than a storage facility, which is what it looks like when you've got loads and loads of cardboard boxes. Obviously, there are instances where you need to keep things in boxes sometimes, but we need to be working towards that not being the case. So I think it's really important to work out what type of boxes have you got. Are you that person who has kept a lot of clutter and it's organized into boxes, so it's already kind of in categories in there? Are these boxes that you've got from when you might have moved house that you've not unpacked yet? That might be something. Are these sweep boxes? If you're not sure what a sweep box is, what that means is that you've gone around in a panic one day when somebody's come into your house, thrown loads of stuff in a box and it's just landed there and you've not got back to it. So sweep boxes and sweep bags are very common. And what they typically will be is full of random stuff and possibly stuff that you have lost as well. So are they sweep boxes? Are they already sorted out boxes? Are they house move boxes? Are they boxes of paperwork? Are they boxes of sentimental stuff? Are they boxes of books? So we need to identify what is in these boxes and how am I going to go about sorting them out?
Yeah, exactly. Of course, one caveat here, if you literally just moved house last week and you've got a house full of 60 or 70 boxes, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking that then you need to do an unpack and just unpack after your house move. This is kind of all the boxes that over time have crept in, or those 10 or 20 boxes that never got unpacked after a house move. Those are the boxes that we're talking about.
I think the most important thing, Ingrid, is that we need to lay the groundwork. We can't just launch into these things that are effectively out on the surface of our home, on floors, same on kitchen cabinets, the same on floor drawers and chairs in your bedroom. We need to tackle what's in the appropriate storage first to make space for what's in the boxes. The stuff typically is in the boxes because there's no space for it to go elsewhere. Otherwise, potentially, it might have already been put away. So we need to lay the groundwork down, do the decluttering in our wardrobes, in our bookcases, wherever that might be, to allow us then the possibility of adding to that stuff that we've already kept with the stuff that's in the boxes. So we need to declutter the whole of that room first before we can start to tackle the boxes.
Yeah, because when everything is out, where are you going to then put the stuff that's going to come out of the box, right? You need to have space to do this. And it ideally it would be a table or something like that. But if that's not an option for you, then you need to have space on the floor where you can go, okay, I'm going to put this box now, I'm going to open it, I'm going to take everything out of this box and I'm going to look at what is in here. But if you then find items you want to keep, for example, if you haven't decluttered your house, where are you going to put it? That's what Leslie is talking about. And that's why it's so important to first declutter your kitchen, your bathroom, your wardrobes, your bookcase, and all of the areas around before you can actually go, now I'm ready to tackle these 20, 30, 40, 50 boxes that are around my house, because that stuff needs to go somewhere. Because if you're going to open a whole box and you want to put stuff away and you can't, then you're going to end up putting everything back in that same box because you're like, I don't know where it's going to go. So you're just in a vicious cycle then. So you have to create space first before you can tackle what's in those boxes. Now, if you open a box and, for example, it's all books, you can immediately go, okay, you take all the books out and go, right. And you can go, what am I keeping? What am I letting go of? And then, of course, so you can immediately you do that. You do the first kind of sift through of the items. Some of the things you want to keep can then go on the bookcase because the bookcase has space for the books to go. And the books that you want to are ready to let go of can go to the charity shop or be donated. So they can go into your car immediately and go, right, that's the box done. Bob's your uncle. But if you open a box with lots of different kinds of stuff, ooh, then you need to do other things, right, Leslie?
Yeah, I think it's important, whatever it is, I think we need to get to a stage, even if our home is still very full. So we're creating a scenario here where we've decluttered the rest of the house and it's opened up space for us. Now, more often than not, that's not the case. We may go through the rest of our house, we may declutter and organize, but it's still fairly full. So at that stage, we really need to confront ourselves or get the knowledge of what's inside the boxes. So even if it, regardless really of whether it's a box with one type of thing or whether it's a box of sweep stuff, we need to open it up and have a look inside. And at that stage, we need to then, if we're not quite ready to put it, if it's a box of books in that scenario, we can go straight to the bookcase and we can go, okay, will it fit on? Let's put it away. But if it's something different, we might need to gather like with like. And what that will then allow us to do is to go, okay, here's a box of stationery, for example. Let me then go once it's opened, and maybe you've got to open 10 boxes to gather all of the stationery from all of those boxes. And so you go through a sorting and gathering exercise, don't you, Ingrid? You're kind of like, okay, I'm not going to worry about putting anything away at this moment in time. I'm just going to open all the boxes and I'm going to get myself to a stage where I've got lots of different categories. And those categories are likely to be things like stationery, things like paperwork, things like sentimental items. If you've got kids, it might be toys or stuff that belongs in their room. You might have some kitchen items, some random utensils that you bought. It could be anything from the rest of your house, right? It might even be clothes in there. There might be laundry. There might be bedding. Who knows what's in those boxes? Open the boxes, confront yourself to have the knowledge of what is inside. That's a really, really important step. We don't want to just ignore the boxes and imagine what's inside. We want to know what's inside. And so it might be that those cardboard boxes actually at this stage don't get emptied and chucked away. They get emptied and then the stuff gets shifted around in them. So we might have all the cardboard boxes lined up and we're like, but now we're putting some order into it. And so now we've got a cardboard box and we're writing with a Sharpie on the end of it, stationery, stuff for Jenny's room, clothes for the laundry. We've got different sort of things that we're going to section it all out. And then we can start to see it taking shape because we can start to see this categorization, right, Ingrid?
Yeah. And I think that is key because sometimes when you try to do one box at a time, you're like, but I don't know if I want to keep this because I've got another 40 boxes that I need to sort. And I know I've got similar kind of stuff in there, but how do I know if I want to keep this one or the one that's still coming? So that's where the subcategorizing and the like with like will really, really help. There, without a shadow of a doubt, there'll be a box of paperwork. You might even subdivide and go, that's paperwork that's opened, and oh, I'm going to create a box for paperwork that's not where the envelopes are still closed because that needs to have a subcategory. So you start to create these more categorized boxes, and then you start to write on it with the Sharpie, what is this stuff? And then you're ready. So very, very often this scenario is what happens. It's almost never like a box of books that I can do with in one go. It's almost always things that have been packed in a rush. Nobody knows what's in there. It's all kind of thrown in together. Or some people were helping you with a house move when life was really chaotic and there was no time to put it all away in boxes quite orderly. So basically, people just walked around the house and kind of everything they found they threw in. So you might find the strangest things, but you also might some stuff you thought you'd long lost, some stuff that's super important, some stuff that you're like, why was this packed up in the first place? But you know what? That's the thing. It's a bit like a treasure hunt as well. But you just need to go ahead and think, okay, how am I going to do this? And of course, decluttering along the way is fantastic. If you see rubbish and things that are crumbled. Have a rubbish bag ready, a bag ready to put the stuff in that can be immediately be recycled or binned. But then, of course, in the rest that you're like, oh, I need to look at this, because you're not going to probably test pens in the middle of this exercise. You're just going to make a box with, this is all loads of stationery. And then later you go through the stationery box and go, okay, what's what here? How many pens? Let me test them. And is this staple still working? And all of those things. But if you immediately see something is broken, you filter it out to save yourself work later.
I think it's really interesting, Ingrid, and this just shows, as we're talking about it, we started at the beginning and said you need to try and work out what kind of boxes you've got. Then we said you can go one box at a time. Then we're saying actually you need to open all the boxes to see what you've got. Every home and every situation is completely different. And that's why it's so overwhelming when you've got like 20, 30 boxes in a room. You're like, well, I don't even know where to start. I've got nowhere to put it. So just to clarify again what we're saying, because it is different and you're going to have to work this stuff out. This is the hard stuff that we do as professional organizers, right?
Yeah.
So we come in to a home where somebody is overwhelmed and paralyzed because they're like, I just don't even know what to do. I don't know what's in the boxes. I don't know what's coming out of them. So we're like, right, let's. And then once you start to open some boxes, it starts to unfold because you start to
Yeah.
get the measure of the type of stuff that's in there. Then you can sort of go, right, okay, so let's get some other boxes, maybe even some collapsible crates, which is what I use. I typically try and use a different box for sorting to sort of separate the cardboard boxes out. And so use collapsible crates to start to gather, like if you've already decluttered some areas of your home and you find, at the end of that decluttering session when you're opening the boxes, give yourself half an hour at the end of it to go, do you know what? I found a whole load of stationery. Let me go to the other place in my house where stationery is and let me see whether there are any duplicates, whether I've got favorites. Because sometimes the stuff that you've got out that you've been using is the older stuff, and then you bought new stuff that's gone in a box. You might prefer the new stuff to replace the old stuff. It could be anything, or the old stuff might be what's in the box, and you're like, I don't know why I'm keeping it because I got a new one now because I ended up buying a duplicate. And so there's any number of scenarios. So this is not straightforward. But I think the message here is at some point you're going to need to do it because the goal is to have no cardboard
Yeah.
boxes in your house. And
Yeah.
so whether it's hard or not and how you choose to break it down, that's the goal that we need to be working towards. Empty boxes are an absolute no-brainer. Just get rid of them as soon as you can get rid of them. There might be a couple of iPhone boxes, but keep that keen. That's kind of simple. Just for us, it just should happen. The fuller boxes are difficult and there are so many different scenarios, but just you need to kind of think about it. You need to know what you're dealing with and then make a plan based on that.
Yeah. And if you have a room that is absolutely chock-a-block full of boxes, you're probably going to need to stack them up a little bit. And I'm not talking about 8 boxes high that they have a chance of falling over, just one or two or three on top of each other. So you can actually create a bit of space and then you can have some place to work with. But it's a process, and that's why decluttering the rest of your house is key to doing this. You have to have space before you can start boxes. And whether they're boxes or indeed bags, it's the similar idea. It's mainly the sweep boxes and the sweep bags with loads of different things. Those are the hardest things to do because you're like, wow, all of a sudden you're confronted with 15 or 20 different categories and you're like, wow, how did it happen? Where is this all coming from? So it can be super satisfying as well. Once things start to find a home, you're like, I know where these items go. And then you start to kind of break the back of it a little bit. But until then, you're gonna have to just plot it through, and it's time consuming. So don't be daunted if this takes you a while.
Absolutely. And just remember as well, if you want to delve in a little bit more into sweet bags, we have done several podcasts where we talk about sweet bags. So do check them out. And I know Ingrid will pop those into the show notes for you because some people will be like, sweet bags? What's a sweet bag? So I hope that we've explained it a little bit. But we go deeper in the podcast, we'll go deeper into why a sweet bag is not a great idea and how to avoid them because they just build up and build up and build up.
Yes.
So have we done the cardboard boxes justice, Ingrid? This is the question.
I really hope so, because I really would be great if we can just recycle those empty boxes and create some space. So we hope this was helpful. Let them go, and we're going to see you next week on the podcast again. So for now, Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.